The baobab rose from the laterite like an ancestor at prayer, roots knuckled into earth, arms holding sky. Awa and Cheikh were 9, then 10, then 11, always barefoot and laughing, playing hide-and-seek around the giant's belly. On a dare, with a sardine tin lid sharpened against stone, Cheikh carved a crooked A beside a careful C. They pressed their foreheads to the trunk, giddy with the mischief and the secret. A plus C, a sum bigger than numbers. Years taught them harvests and harmattan. Awa carried calabashes, learned to braid, learned the quiet ranges of her mother's voice. Cheikh chased goats, dribbled a ragball, learned the mouth music of the kora from an uncle with smoke in his laugh. The baobab kept watch, bark silver and noon, whispering whenever wind combed the leaves. One evening, fireflies stitched green light between their faces. "When I'm big I'll go to Dakar," Cheikh vowed, a boy trying on a man's voice. "I'll come back with riches. I'll buy you bangles that sing." Awa smiled and touched the shallow carving. "Just come back," she said. "The tree will know if you forget." The dry season came wearing dust like a veil. Cheikh left with a satchel, a kiss to his mother's brow, a final palm on the baobab's skin. Buses coughed him toward the city. Awa watched the road, then watched it again as though repetition could be ritual. Letters arrived at first, breaths of paper smelling faintly of petrol and sea. He wrote of street markets where fish gleamed like mirrors, of tall buildings that turned boys into reflections, of night school in a cement room where chalk scratched maps of a future. "I look for our initials in the city," he wrote, "on signs, on bus numbers. The only place I find them is in my chest." Awa answered with meticulous lines, careful to hide her softness in stories of millet and salt harvests, in tiny sketches of the baobab. When the letters thinned, she taught herself patience. She poured ataya twice, leaving a third glass to cool beside the carved trunk, a small offering to distance. Rumor travels faster than dust. Word slipped from a cousin's phone to a neighbor's tongue. Cheikh had a job with a company that wore shirts the color of clouds. He had money, a scooter, new shoes. He had a fiancée whose name tasted like mango on the mouth, Mareem. Awa learned the name in a single blink and lived with it all day. The baobab's bark felt suddenly rougher beneath her palm. She traced A plus C and wondered if plus signs can become wounds. A child ran by with a tin car. In its rattling wheels she heard a train departing. That evening she sat with her mother by the hearth. "The world rotates," her mother said, as if the pot had asked a question. "Trees stay. Children turn." Awa nodded and poured tea that was too sweet, hoping sugar could trick the night. He came on a day seamed with thunder, the sky furrowed and ready. The village gathered as if for wrestling, laughter tasting of rain. Cheikh arrived astride a glittering motorbike, helmet under his arm, city on his shoulders like a jacket. They greeted at a distance, then closer. His eyes were the same, only steadier. "Awa," he said. Her name in his mouth sounded older, more expensive. She smiled and kept her joy in the small muscles of her face. "Welcome home," she said, and felt the baobab listening. At dusk they stood beside the carving. He touched it like a thief confessing. "I thought of this every time I passed a tree in Dakar," he said. "Even palm trees accused me." Awa laughed, then swallowed it. "Palm trees are gossipers." Wind arrived with the first drops of rain, and their silence filled with 100 childhood summers. Cheikh brought gifts, fabric the blue of river shallows, a bracelet shaped like a crescent, packets of biscuits tasting of vanilla and city. He brought his fiancée's absence and her voice in stories. "Mareem works at a clinic, she is fierce, kind. We plan to wed when the rainy season softens." The village opened like a drum. Drummers tested rhythms for no reason. Children ran behind the motorbike until dust crowned them. Awa measured her steps as if she were walking the lip of a well. She poured ataya for Cheikh in 3 turns, bitter, better, best, and told herself ritual can keep a heart from spilling. When their fingers brushed around the hot glass, a bright tremor crossed her wrist. He felt it, she knew he did by the blink he hid inside a smile. The baobab shadowed them, a cool cathedral, and somewhere inside the trunk an old promise turned in its sleep. The village chose a night to pretend the world was simple. Lanterns swung like moons caught in nets, cassava fritters hissed in pans, and the balafon clacked a path into joy. Awa wore the river blue fabric, its hem kissing her ankles. Cheikh wore a white shirt that made his laughter brighter. They danced in circles that tightened into lines. When the drummers lunged, everyone's feet remembered they were stories. Awa spun, her headscarf loosened, a curl sprang free as if it had been waiting years to be alive. Cheikh's gaze found her again and again, with the inevitability of tide. Later, the crowd thinned and the music softened to a conversation. They stepped beyond lantern light, into a shore of shadow where the night air held mango and possibility. "You'll be happy," Awa said, offering blessing like bread. "You'll make a good husband." He almost answered. Instead, he touched the edge of her scarf, a gesture so light that thunder could have denied it happened. Rain has its own ethics. It does not ask permission to change you. A storm arrived mid-afternoon, silting the village with silver threads. Awa ran to rescue drying millet. Cheikh ran because he saw her run. They reached the baobab at the same time, breath braided with rain. They stood beneath the broad green canopy, the world a curtain of water. Awa's fabric clung like a shy second skin. Cheikh's shirt turned translucent with the honesty of weather. "This is foolish," she whispered, though she wasn't sure which part. He took her wrist gently as one touches a sacred drum. "I made a promise when I was a child," he said, voice low, "and then I made plans when I became a man. I don't know which is truer." The rain answered with soft fists on leaves. Awa lifted her chin and met his gaze until she saw the boy he had been and the man he was trying to be, both wanting. Their kiss was brief, reverent, a candle cupped against wind. Afterwards they stood apart and the rain kept their secret. Guilt has a gate you can hear if you listen. Cheikh walked with it the next day, shoulders tilted by an invisible bucket. He helped repair a fence, carried water, told long stories to elders whose eyebrows knew how to ask questions without words. Awa moved through chores as if they were steps in a complicated dance. She ground millet, her arms remembering the way his hands had hovered near. She fetched water and saw her reflection turn to ripples at the thought of him. "Names are threats," her mother said suddenly, pouncing on silence. "Cheikh is tied to another. You are tied to yourself." At dusk, Awa returned to the baobab and pressed her brow to the carving. "We were children," she murmured. "But we were also prophets." A wind rose, dry and old, rustling the storybook of leaves. A rented car bloomed dust at the road's edge. Mareem stepped out wearing city poise and addressed the color of hibiscus tea. Her smile was the kind that built clinics. It healed and demanded you help it heal. She hugged Cheikh fiercely, then turned and greeted everyone with formal warmth. When she embraced Awa, something tender passed between them, recognition perhaps that women often inhabit the same weather. That evening the three of them shared a taya. They talked of medicine and markets, of Dakar's buses that sing when they break, of village wells whose ropes need mending. Mareem listened when Awa spoke, eyes bright. "You would have loved the university," she said without irony. "You noticed the small things." Awa slept badly for the first time in years, dreamt of red hibiscus floating in rain barrels. At dawn she found the baobab's bark damp, as if it had sweat through the night. Villages are radios, every face is a frequency. Someone saw Cheikh and Awa beneath the storm or said they did. Someone added a kiss, somebody else added two. The tale sprouted legs. Elders cleared their throats. A wrestler practicing holds paused to consider honor. Cheikh felt the attention like midday sun. He visited households with gifts of sugar and apologies shaped like smiles. He turned to work, fixing the well rope, showing Mareem the old pond where frogs composed symphonies at dusk. He loved her for her competence, for the way she labeled herbs in her notebook. He loved Awa for the ineffable ache that tightened his chest when she laughed at the wrong moment. Awa refused to hide. She greeted people as always, carried water straight-backed, let her dignity be her roof. When she passed the wrestling field, the men looked away first. At night she told the baobab, "I will not be rumor's puppet." The tree answered with the solidity of bark. Work is a language for uneasy hearts. Awa joined the salt women at the flats, backs shining, feet burning, laughter sharp as brine. She loved the order of it: scrape, mound, carry, dissolve. Under the white glare, memory lost some color. Cheikh accompanied Mareem to visit elders, their stethoscope a small miracle. He watched her kneel, listened to the shy way the old admitted pain to a stranger. For a moment, destiny looked simple. A clinic, a wedding, a motorbike, weekend visits to the village. Then he caught sight of a girl in blue at the edge of the flats, head bent, gait known to his bones, and destiny blurred like a mirage above hot salt. That night Awa and Cheikh met where nobody could call it meeting, the path between the well and the mango grove. They walked in parallel, not touching. Words did the touching. "I thought love made roads," Awa said quietly. "I didn't know it made crossroads." He swallowed. "What do we owe the people who built our names?" The moon withheld advice. "There is a way to drink tea that rescues you." Awa and her cousins hosted a night of ataya, cups passing like drum patterns, gossip softening to affection. Cheikh arrived with Mareem, whose laugh stitched itself into the circle. Between sips, Awa told a story about a fisherman who borrowed the sea and forgot to return it. People clapped. Someone began a tune on a battered kora. As the third glass cooled, sweet as confession, Cheikh asked Awa to show Mareem the baobab. The three walked out, a triangle in lantern light. When they reached the trunk, Mareem traced the carving with a finger. "Childhood is a country we cannot immigrate to twice," she said almost to herself. Silence pooled. Then Mareem faced them both, unflinching. "I love you," she told Cheikh, "and I also see you when you look at Awa. Love is not blind, it simply chooses to stay." She turned to Awa. "And you carry your heart like a calabash, careful, upright. If fate asks me to share a table with you, I will share it, but I won't share a chair. Choices ripen at night." Cheikh left the compound long after the voices thinned. He found Awa where the path meets the field, a spot where moonlight writes its own alphabet. They stood with a yard of fate between them. "I am tired of being torn," he said. "I want to be honest enough to deserve any woman's grief." Awa's smile was small and terrible in its kindness. "Then be honest with yourself first." Wind lifted the hem of her scarf. In the hush, they leaned into each other like uncertain pilgrims. Their embrace was long and unhurried, a tide-learning shoreline. He kissed her with the care you give a name you've almost forgotten how to pronounce. When they parted, both were shaking, not from fear but from the relief of naming the river. They did not go further. They let desire live in breath and pulse and the eloquence of two foreheads pressed together while the world held its breath. Dawn burns lies away. Cheikh walked to the elder's compound, asked for a seat and told a story without embroidery. He spoke of promises and plans, of trees and cities, of two women who deserved a man who would not fracture them. He did not beg forgiveness. He asked for wisdom. The elders listened, drying hands on peaceable cloths. Advice came like rain on tin, loud, overlapping, human. "A wedding is not a reward for confusion," one said. "A promise is either kept or returned," said another. Finally the oldest woman, whose eyes remembered drought, spoke. "Choose as if you must build a clinic with your choice. One that heals more than just you." Cheikh went to Mareem first. He returned the promise with both hands, sorrowed but resolute. She cried a clean, angry cry, then leaned on Grace. "Build your clinic," she said, voice hoarse, "and don't make me regret believing in your goodness." She left that afternoon, spine straight as a road. The village waits the way fields do, outwardly still, inwardly growing. Weeks later, after gossip softened into memory, Cheikh and Awa stood again at the baobab. The old carving watched them with patient scars. They brought a small knife and a larger humility. "I don't want to erase anything," Awa said. "Not the wound, not the lesson." Cheikh nodded. Side by side they carved beneath the first initials, careful as surgeons. They didn't draw a heart, they drew a small baobab, a child of the giant, its roots touching the A+C above. "We'll plant a clinic like this," he said. "And a schoolroom. And a well rope that doesn't fray." They kissed, not with the urgent secrecy of storms, but with the measured joy of architecture. Around them, women's voices lifted from the salt flats. A chorus sounded from somewhere behind a compound wall. A motorbike yawned and settled. The tree held sky, the earth held them. The future, for once, felt like something that could be faithfully built.